Weight of a Dream. Volume 2, 7 Different Dreams. Chapter 11, The First Day as Trainees. 5 a.m. A loud alarm echoed through the trainee dorm. Beep, beep, beep. Han Minjae slowly opened his eyes. For a brief moment, he forgot where he was. Then he saw the unfamiliar ceiling, the neatly arranged room, the Nova Entertainment tracksuit hanging beside his bed. I'm really here. Across the room, Kang Hyunwoo was already awake. He had finished making his bed and was tying the laces of his running shoes. Morning. Minjae sat up quickly. Good morning. Hyunwoo smiled. You have exactly 15 minutes. To do what? Everything. Minjae blinked. Everything. Hyunwoo laughed. Welcome to trainee life. 5 minutes later, the dorm exploded into chaos. Jihoo. Jisoo's voice echoed through the hallway. We're going to be late. I'm awake. No, you're not. I am. Then why are you still in bed? I don't know. Hyunwoo pinched the bridge of his nose. This is going to be a long year. Even Taeyang couldn't hide a small smile. Akira quietly handed Jihoo a neatly folded tracksuit. I ironed yours too. Jihoo looked touched. Hung, you even iron clothes. Akira nodded shyly. My mother taught me. 5:30 a.m. The seven stood outside Nova Entertainment. Dozens of trainees had already gathered. Some stretched. Some jogged in place. Others looked half asleep. Kocho Suman arrived carrying a whistle. She was known throughout the company for one thing: merciless fitness training. She looked over the crowd. Listen carefully. No idols. No celebrities. No favorites. Today, you're all just trainees. Nobody answered. 10-kilometer run. Go. The whistle blew. The group immediately scattered. Taeyang disappeared into the front pack. His pace looked effortless. Hyunwoo maintained a steady rhythm. Akira stayed close behind. Dohun and Jisoo ran together. Jihoo sprinted ahead. For exactly 30 seconds. Then, I made a mistake. Jisoo laughed while passing him. You're learning. Minjae quickly found himself at the back. His breathing became heavy before the first kilometer ended. His legs burned. His shoulders felt heavy. The extra weight he still carried made every step harder than everyone else's. One trainee whispered as he passed. Isn't he the overweight guy? I heard he somehow passed. Must have been lucky. Minjae heard every word. He didn't answer. Instead, he kept running. 3 kilometers. 4. 5. His breathing became ragged. Sweat poured down his face. His vision blurred. His pace slowed to a walk. Kocho noticed immediately. Han Minjae. Yes, you may walk for 1 minute. But after that, you run again. Yes, coach. She didn't pity him. She didn't yell at him. She simply expected him to keep moving. And somehow, that gave him strength. At the finish line, Taeyang had already cooled down. Hyunwoo handed water bottles to everyone. Jihoo collapsed dramatically onto the ground. I've seen heaven, and it's a bed. Everyone laughed. Then, Minjae appeared. His face was red. His clothes were soaked. His legs trembled with every step. But, he crossed the finish line. Without quitting, Kocho wrote something on her clipboard. Finished last. Then underneath, never stopped. After breakfast, the trainees moved to Dance Studio 1. Instructor Kim Sang-ho walked inside. Silence instantly filled the room. He was famous for reducing grown men to tears during practice. Without introducing himself, he pressed play. Music exploded through the speakers. Learn it. The trainees stared. The choreography lasted nearly 2 minutes. They had watched it only once. Again, another viewing. Now, perform. Jihoo whispered. We're doomed. The room quickly divided into 2 groups. Experienced dancers. And everyone else. Taeyang memorized nearly everything. Akira followed closely. Dohun adapted surprisingly fast. Hyunwoo kept up through experience. Jisoo struggled but laughed through his mistakes. Minjae could barely remember the first 30 seconds. Every spin left him a beat behind. Every jump landed a little too late. By lunchtime, his shirt was soaked for the 3rd time. The afternoon brought vocal lessons. For the first time that day, Minjae relaxed. The piano stood quietly in the corner. Instructor Choi Hyejin smiled. Who plays? Minjae slowly raised his hand. You. He walked toward the instrument. What song? May I play my own? She nodded. The room became silent. Gentle notes filled the classroom. Unlike the dance studio, this was where Minjae belonged. When he finished, even the vocal instructor smiled. You have beautiful emotion. She looked around the room. Remember this. A perfect technique can impress people. But honest emotion moves them. The 6 members looked proudly toward Minjae. Jaiho whispered, our producer Hung is amazing. Minjae's ears turned bright red. Evening arrived. Most trainees dragged themselves toward the dorm. The 7 walked together in silence. Nobody had enough energy to talk. Until Jisoo suddenly groaned. My legs. I don't think they're mine anymore. Jaiho nodded. I tried sitting down. I almost couldn't get back up. Taeyang chuckled softly. Tomorrow will be worse. Everyone stared at him. Worse. He nodded calmly. Much worse. A chorus of despair echoed down the sidewalk. Back at the dorm, the members collapsed around the living room. Nobody touched the television. Nobody reached for their phones. Everyone simply lay on the floor. Hyunwoo finally broke the silence. So, first day. Thoughts. Jaiho raised one trembling hand. I want a refund. Laughter filled the dorm. Even Minjae laughed so hard his tired muscles hurt. For the first time since becoming trainees. The pressure disappeared. Only for a moment. But it was enough. Later that night, long after everyone had fallen asleep, Minjae quietly stood in front of the bathroom mirror. He looked at his reflection. The same round face. The same broad shoulders. The same body that still struggled to keep up. But something had changed. He no longer saw someone chasing an impossible dream alone. He saw someone who had taken the first step toward earning it. He opened his notebook. Current weight, 100.3 kilograms. Beneath it, he wrote, today, I finished last. After a moment, he added another sentence. Tomorrow, I'll finish stronger. He closed the notebook with a quiet smile. Outside, Seoul slept peacefully. Inside the trainee dorm, 7 dreams rested beneath one roof. Tomorrow would test them again. And the day after that. Until only the strongest remained. Han Minjae wasn't the fastest. He wasn't the best dancer. He wasn't the skinniest trainee. But every new morning, he would be there, running, learning, falling, standing again. Because dreams were never carried in a single day. They were built, one step at a time. Chapter 12, The Morning Run. The shrill sound of the alarm pierced the silence. 4:15 a.m. Han Minjae's eyes opened almost immediately. For a moment, he lay still, listening. The dorm was quiet. Everyone else was asleep. He carefully climbed out of bed, making sure not to wake Hyunwoo. After changing into his running clothes, he quietly grabbed his shoes and slipped out of the room. The apartment door clicked shut. Let's go. The city was still wrapped in darkness. Streetlights cast long shadows across the empty sidewalks as Minjae began his slow jog. His pace wasn't fast. It never had been. But it was steady. One breath. One step. One dream. The cool morning air filled his lungs. Every morning reminded him of the countless days he had spent running alone before he ever became a trainee. Back then, there had been no teammates. No coaches. No hope of debut. Only an overweight young man refusing to give up. 20 minutes later, his breathing became heavier. Sweat trickled down his forehead. His legs ached, but he continued running. Just as he reached the small riverside park, he heard footsteps behind him. Morning. Minjae turned around. Hyunwoo. The leader smiled while stretching his shoulders. I figured I'd find you here. I didn't mean to wake you. You didn't. I noticed you leave. Minjae looked embarrassed. I wanted extra practice. Hyunwoo nodded. I know. Without another word, he began jogging beside him. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. The silence wasn't awkward. It was comfortable. Eventually, Hyunwoo broke it. You know, I wasn't always a good runner. Minjae looked surprised. Really? Hyunwoo laughed. My first month as a trainee. I fainted after 5 kilometers. Minjae blinked. You, me. I was embarrassed. I thought everyone would laugh. Instead, my seniors carried me to the medical room. He smiled softly. They told me something I'll never forget. Hyunwoo looked ahead. You don't become strong overnight. He glanced at Minjae. You remind me of myself. Minjae lowered his eyes. I'm still so far behind. No. Hyunwoo shook his head. You're behind. But you're catching up. They're different things. Those words stayed with Minjae for the rest of the run. By the time they returned to Nova Entertainment, the other trainees had already gathered. Coach Suman immediately noticed. You too? Hyunwoo answered. Yes, coach. Were you running before official training? Yes. She looked toward Minjae. How long? About 40 minutes. Coach silently wrote something on her clipboard. The official 10-kilometer run began. The whistle echoed through the training grounds. Everyone sprinted forward. As expected, Taeyang led the front group. Jaiho started too quickly again. Jisoo laughed while trying to keep up. Dohun and Akira maintained a steady rhythm. Minjae remained near the back. But today, something was different. His breathing stayed controlled longer. His pace was steadier. Even though he still finished near the end, he crossed the finish line nearly 6 minutes faster than the previous day. Kocho looked at her stopwatch. Good. It was only one word. Yet it felt like winning a medal. After breakfast, Kocho called Minjae aside. I've reviewed your fitness records. Minjae stood nervously. Did I do something wrong? No. She handed him a folder. This is your new training program. He opened it. It wasn't stricter. It was different. Running schedule, strength training, stretching, recovery days, balanced meals, sleep requirements, even hydration goals. Minjae looked confused. I thought you'd make me train harder. Kocho folded her arms. I could. You'd lose weight faster. She paused. And you'd probably destroy your knees. Minjae quietly listened. I don't want you to lose weight quickly. I want you to keep dancing 10 years from now. She pointed at the schedule. This isn't about becoming skinny. It's about becoming healthy enough to perform. For a moment, Minjae couldn't speak. No trainer had ever said those words to him before. He bowed deeply. Thank you, coach. That afternoon, dance practice was especially brutal. Instructor Kim Sang-ho demonstrated a difficult jumping sequence. Again, the trainees repeated it. Again, their legs screamed. Again, sweat soaked the wooden floor. During one jump, Minjae stumbled. He almost fell. Before he hit the ground, someone grabbed his arm. Taeyang, you okay? Yeah, don't rush. Focus on the landing. It was the longest sentence Taeyang had spoken to him since they met. Minjae smiled. Thanks. After training, the 7 gathered in the locker room. Jaiho stretched dramatically. I can't feel my legs anymore. Jisoo sighed. I don't think we own our legs. Akira nodded. I think Nova borrowed them. Even Taeyang laughed quietly. The room erupted into laughter. That evening, Minjae headed toward the dorm when he noticed 6 familiar figures standing near the entrance. Hyunwoo, Taeyang, Jisoo, Dohun, Akira, Jaiho. They were all wearing running shoes. Minjae blinked. Where are you going? Hyunwoo smiled. We're running. Training ended. I know. So why? Jaiho grinned. Because you shouldn't have to run alone. Minjae froze. Jisoo pointed dramatically. Our producer is secretly training. We're not letting him hog all the improvement. Akira smiled warmly. We'll all improve together. Even Taeyang nodded once. Let's go. For several seconds, Minjae couldn't move. His eyes became watery. He quickly looked away so no one would notice. Thank you. Hyunwoo placed a hand on his shoulder. No, we're teammates. Without another word, the 7 began jogging beneath the evening sky. Not racing, not competing, simply moving forward together. People passing by barely noticed them. To everyone else, they were just 7 ordinary trainees. But someday, those 7 silhouettes running side by side would become one of K-pop's brightest stars. Late that night, Minjae updated his notebook. Current weight, 99.7 kilograms. He stared at the number. For the first time in years, it had dropped below 100 kilograms. A quiet tear rolled down his cheek. Not because of the number, but because he hadn't reached it alone. Beneath today's weight, he wrote, the dream still feels heavy. Then he smiled and added one more line. But now, 7 people are carrying it together. He closed the notebook. Outside, dawn was only a few hours away. Another alarm would ring, another run would begin, and Han Minjae would be there again. Not because he had to, but because every step brought him closer to the stage he had dreamed of his entire life. Chapter 13, Studio B. The trainee dorm was unusually quiet. It was nearly midnight. The other 6 members had already fallen asleep after another exhausting day of training. Only one room still had its lights on. Han Minjae quietly sat at the dining table with a notebook open before him. Blank pages. Blank staff lines. No melody. No lyrics. Only silence. He sighed. Nothing. For the first time in months. He couldn't write. Earlier that afternoon, producer Park Eun-ha had stopped him outside the vocal practice room. Minjae. He immediately bowed. Yes, Producer Park. She handed him a small envelope. Inside was a silver access card. Across the front were 3 simple words. Studio B access. I have your first assignment. His heart skipped a beat. My first assignment. She nodded. I don't want a perfect song. I want an honest one. She looked at him for a moment before continuing. Write a song about hope. Not the loud kind. The quiet kind. The kind that helps someone stand up after they've fallen. She smiled gently. You have 1 week. Now. Those words echoed inside his mind. A song about hope. It sounded simple. But to Minjae, hope had always been complicated. The next morning, after another grueling day of training, Minjae stood in front of Studio B. The silver access card trembled slightly in his hand. He had dreamed of entering a professional recording studio for years. Now, he was afraid to step inside. Don't waste this opportunity. He slid the card through the scanner. Beep. The heavy door slowly opened. Studio B was unlike anything he had ever seen. A grand piano rested in one corner. Professional synthesizers lined the walls. Mixing consoles glowed beneath dim lights. High-end microphones stood inside a soundproof vocal booth. Shelves filled with music awards decorated the room. Minjae slowly walked inside. He carefully touched one of the keyboards. Amazing. His reflection stared back at him from the polished piano. He smiled softly. This is really happening. He sat before the piano, closed his eyes, and played. A single note echoed through the room. Then another. Another. He stopped. No. Too sad. He started again. This time the melody sounded brighter. He frowned. Still not right. Hour after hour passed. The notebook remained almost empty. Outside the studio, someone quietly listened. Producer Park Eun-ha. She smiled. He's struggling. Assistant Kim looked confused. Should we help him? She shook her head. No. Every songwriter has to fight through silence. If I give him the answer, it won't become his song. By evening, Minjae leaned back in his chair. He rubbed his tired eyes. I've written dozens of songs. So why is this one so difficult? He looked around the empty studio. Then, his eyes landed on the practice mirror hanging beside the piano. He saw his reflection. Sweaty, tired, still slightly overweight. Yet, he was wearing a Nova Entertainment trainee jacket. A memory surfaced. The lonely morning runs. 38 rejections. The old convenience store owner. Hyunwoo's encouragement. The 6 teammates waiting for him every evening. A smile slowly appeared. Hope isn't something you find. It's something people give you. His fingers returned to the piano. A gentle melody flowed into the quiet room. Soft, warm, comforting. Nothing flashy. Nothing dramatic. Just honest. Without realizing it, he continued playing for nearly an hour. When the final note faded, he whispered, This is it. At that exact moment, the studio door slowly opened. Minjae quickly stood. Sorry. I didn't know anyone was. The 6 members stood outside. Jaiho rubbed the back of his neck. We heard piano. Jisoo smiled sheepishly. We were curious. Minjae looked embarrassed. I didn't mean to wake anyone. Hyunwoo shook his head. You didn't. We wanted to hear. Minjae hesitated. It isn't finished. Taeyang crossed his arms. Play it anyway. Akira nodded. Please. Dohun smiled softly. We're your first audience. Minjae looked around at the 6 familiar faces. Slowly, he sat back down. His fingers rested on the keys. Then, the melody began. Nobody spoke. Jaiho forgot to blink. Jisoo's usual smile faded into quiet admiration. Taeyang unconsciously tapped the rhythm with his foot. Akira closed his eyes. Dohun watched Minjae instead of the piano. Hyunwoo simply smiled. The final note faded. Silence. Then, Jaiho quietly whispered, hung, that made me want to cry. Jisoo laughed. I was already crying. Everyone looked toward him. What? I get emotional. The room filled with laughter. Producer Park Eun-ha quietly entered the studio. I've heard enough. The members immediately stood. She walked toward Minjae. What did you call it? He looked down at the notebook. I haven't decided. She smiled. I have. She gently turned the notebook around. At the top of the page, she wrote 3 words. Light after rain. Minjae read the title quietly. Light after rain. She nodded. That's what your music feels like. Not loud. Not blinding. Just enough light to help someone keep walking. The following afternoon, Minjae was called to Studio B once again. Producer Park Eun-ha was waiting. So, how much experience do you have with arranging for multiple voices? Minjae blinked. Multiple voices. She smiled. You've spent years writing songs for yourself. She slid several sheets of music across the desk. It's time to start writing. For 6 other people too. Minjae looked at the blank arrangement sheets. For the first time, he wasn't just becoming a songwriter. He was becoming a producer. A producer didn't simply write beautiful music. A producer understood every voice, every strength, every weakness, every dream. As he picked up the pencil, he glanced through the studio window. Outside, the 6 members were finishing dance practice. Laughing, teasing Jaiho, walking together. A small smile appeared on his face. I already know who I want to write for. Far beyond the practice rooms, the future sound of Eclipse had quietly begun taking shape. Not through expensive equipment, not through perfect technique, but through the heart of one young man, who had finally found people worth writing songs for. Chapter 14, 8 years. The monthly evaluation rankings were posted every first Monday. No trainee liked that day. The hallway outside evaluation room A was silent. Dozens of trainees stood in front of a large bulletin board, waiting for the staff to pin up the results. Nobody spoke. Some stared at the floor. Others quietly prayed. Han Minjae stood beside Hyunwoo. His palms were sweaty despite the cool morning air. I'm nervous. Hyunwoo smiled. You'll never stop being nervous. Even after 8 years. Minjae looked at him. 8 years. Hyunwoo laughed softly. I've seen this hallway more times than I can count. A staff member approached. The rankings were pinned to the board. Everyone rushed forward. Eyes searched desperately. Some smiled. Some sighed with relief. Others silently walked away. Minjae searched for his own name. Dance, C. Vocal, B. Fitness, C. Composition, A. He let out a quiet breath. I improved. Producer Park Eun-ha had written a short note beneath his composition score. Your emotions reach people. Keep writing. Minjae smiled. Jaiho shouted excitedly. I moved up 3 places. Jisoo high-fived him. I told you all those extra practices would pay off. Akira smiled after finding his name. Taeyang remained near the top as expected. Dohun had also improved. One by one, the members quietly celebrated. Except one. Hyunwoo remained standing in front of the board. Without moving, Minjae slowly walked toward him. Hyunwoo forced a smile. I'm fine. But his eyes said otherwise. His ranking had dropped. Again, that evening, the dorm felt unusually quiet. Jaiho and Jisoo had stopped joking. Even Taeyang sensed the heavy atmosphere. Hyunwoo quietly sat alone on the balcony. The city lights stretched endlessly before him. Minjae noticed. He quietly stepped outside. Mind if I sit here? Hyunwoo nodded. Neither of them spoke for several minutes. Only the distant sounds of traffic filled the silence. Finally, Hyunwoo smiled bitterly. Do you know how many monthly evaluations I've taken? Minjae shook his head. 89. Minjae's eyes widened. 89. Hyunwoo laughed quietly. I stopped counting after 50. His smile slowly disappeared. When I was 14, I entered Nova Entertainment. I thought, if I worked hard, I'd debut in 2 or 3 years. He looked toward the night sky. Then one group debuted. I wasn't chosen. Another group. I wasn't chosen. Again, and again. Minjae listened quietly. No interruptions. No advice. Just listening. Hyunwoo continued. I had friends. We trained together. They all left. Some debuted. Some quit. Some decided this life wasn't for them. He chuckled softly. I attended 3 debut showcases. And 5 farewell parties. His voice cracked. Eventually, I became the oldest trainee. A long silence followed. Then, Hyunwoo quietly asked, do you know what scares me the most? Minjae looked at him. It's not failing. It's waking up one day and realizing 8 years weren't enough. Those words lingered in the cold night air. Minjae lowered his head. He didn't know what to say. Nothing felt big enough to erase 8 years of disappointment. Instead, he quietly stood. I'll be back. Before Hyunwoo could ask where he was going, Minjae disappeared inside. 15 minutes later, a gentle piano melody drifted through the dorm. Hyunwoo looked toward the music room. Curious, he walked inside. The lights were dim. Only the desk lamp illuminated the piano. Minjae sat quietly before it. He didn't speak. He simply played. The melody began softly, calm, warm, like sunrise after a long winter. One by one, the other members gathered at the doorway. Nobody interrupted. Nobody made a sound. They simply listened. When the song ended, the room remained silent. Hyunwoo looked at Minjae. What was that? Minjae smiled shyly. I don't know. I just wrote it. For you. Hyunwoo blinked. For me. Minjae nodded. You've spent 8 years helping other people keep going. I thought someone should remind you that you don't have to carry everything alone. Hyunwoo lowered his head. His shoulders trembled. For years, he had always been the one comforting others. The dependable leader. The reliable senior. The person who never broke. But tonight, the walls he had built over 8 years finally cracked. Quiet tears rolled down his face. Thank you, he whispered. Jaiho suddenly walked forward. Without saying anything, he hugged Hyunwoo. Jisoo followed. So did we. Akira joined. Then Dohun. Then Taeyang. Finally, Minjae. 7 young men stood together in the middle of the music room. Nobody cared who ranked first. Nobody cared who ranked last. At that moment, they were simply 7 people protecting one another. The following morning, producer Park Eun-ha reviewed security footage from Studio B. She wasn't watching the piano. She wasn't watching Minjae. She was watching the 7 trainees. The hug, the smiles, the tears. She quietly smiled. Assistant Kim looked puzzled. What are you watching? Park Eun-ha pointed toward the screen. Not trainees. Assistant Kim frowned. Then what? She answered softly. The beginning of a family. Later that afternoon, Director Kim entered the dance studio. The trainees immediately lined up. Without a word, he placed a new notice on the wall. Special mid-year evaluation. 1 month remained. The room became silent. Director Kim looked around. This evaluation will determine who earns the opportunity to perform before Nova Entertainment's executives. Every trainee swallowed nervously. As Director Kim left the room, Hyunwoo glanced at the 6 members beside him. His ranking had fallen. His confidence had been shaken. But for the first time in 8 years, he didn't feel alone. Because whenever his strength began to falter, there were now 6 people ready to carry part of his dream. And among them, one quiet songwriter had reminded him why he started chasing it in the first place. Chapter 15, A Leader's Tears. The notice remained pinned to the practice room wall. Special mid-year evaluation 30 days remaining. Every trainee who walked past it instinctively slowed down. Some stared at it with determination. Others avoided looking altogether. For many trainees, this evaluation would decide whether they continued chasing their dream. The atmosphere inside Nova Entertainment changed overnight. Practice rooms stayed occupied long after midnight. The cafeteria became quieter. Laughter grew rarer. Everyone trained with one goal in mind. Survive. Hyunwoo was no different. If anything, he trained harder than anyone else. 5 a.m. While the other members were still asleep, Hyunwoo had already finished his morning run. 7:30 a.m. He stayed after vocal class to practice alone. 12 p.m. Instead of eating with the others, he reviewed choreography in an empty dance room. 11:40 p.m. Long after everyone returned to the dorm, he remained inside Studio 3. Again, Han Minjae quietly watched from the hallway. He's overworking himself. Taeyang nodded. He barely sleeps. Jisoo frowned. I haven't seen him smile all week. Akira looked worried. He skipped dinner yesterday. Jaiho lowered his head. What do we do? Nobody had an answer. 3 days later, the vocal instructors announced a surprise evaluation. Each trainee performed individually. One by one, the members finished. Hyunwoo entered last. Everyone expected another flawless performance. He began singing. The first verse was steady. Then, his voice cracked. A single note, barely noticeable. But Hyunwoo heard it. The rest of the performance never recovered. When he finished, silence filled the room. Instructor Choi gently closed the evaluation file. You've been forcing your voice. Hyunwoo bowed. I'm sorry. Don't apologize. Rest. He remained silent. That evening, the rain poured heavily over Seoul. Lightning flashed beyond the dorm windows. Inside, the members quietly ate dinner. One chair remained empty. Hyunwoo's. Minjae stood. I'll go find him. The rooftop of the dorm overlooked the city. Rain tapped softly against the shelter above. Hyunwoo stood alone near the railing. His soaked training jacket clung to his shoulders. He didn't turn around when Minjae approached. You found me. Minjae nodded. Everyone's worried. They shouldn't be. They are. Silence. Finally, Hyunwoo spoke. I lied. Minjae looked at him. The other night, when I said I wasn't afraid of failing. I lied. His voice trembled. I'm terrified. I've watched juniors debut. I've watched friends quit. I've watched years disappear. He clenched the railing tightly. What if I'm not good enough? What if my story ends before it even begins? Minjae quietly stood beside him. He didn't interrupt. He simply listened. The rain continued falling. Hyunwoo laughed bitterly. You know what's funny? I'm supposed to be the leader. The dependable one. But lately, I feel like I'm the weakest person on the team. Before Minjae could answer, the rooftop door slowly opened. Jaiho stepped outside, followed by Jisoo, then Taeyang, Akira, Dohun. None of them said a word. They simply walked toward Hyunwoo. Jaiho spoke first. You always tell us that it's okay to make mistakes. Hyunwoo looked at him. Yeah, so why can't you make one? Jisoo smiled sadly. When I'm worried, you're the first person who notices. When Akira misses home, you stay up talking with him. When Taeyang practices too much, you make him rest. When Minjae doubts himself, you remind him how far he's come. He stepped closer. But, who reminds you? Hyunwoo lowered his head. Nobody. For 8 years, nobody had. Taeyang quietly placed a hand on Hyunwoo's shoulder. I've always admired you. Hyunwoo looked surprised. You've stayed. When everyone else left, you stayed. I thought, if someone like you could keep going, then so could I. Akira smiled gently. My Korean wasn't good. I was lonely. You ate dinner with me every night. You became my first friend here. Dohun spoke next. I always worried people only saw my face. You were the first person who praised my effort, not my appearance. Finally, Minjae stepped forward. He held a small notebook. I finished something. Hyunwoo blinked. Already? Minjae nodded. He opened the notebook. At the top of the page was a title. Carry Me Until Sunrise. I wrote it. For all of us. He slowly sang the first verse. His voice was soft, almost a whisper. When your feet forget the road. When your heart forgets the light. I'll walk beside you. Until morning comes. No instruments. No accompaniment. Just one honest voice beneath the rain. When he finished, nobody spoke. Hyunwoo wiped his eyes. You really always know what to write. Minjae smiled shyly. Only because I know who I'm writing about. Without warning, Hyunwoo began crying. Not quietly. Not holding back. Years of frustration, disappointment, fear, loneliness. Everything poured out. The 6 members surrounded him without hesitation. No one told him to stop crying. No one told him to be strong. They simply stood beside him. Sometimes, that was enough. The next morning, Director Kim reviewed footage from the dorm's rooftop security camera. He watched the 7 trainees standing together beneath the rain. Producer Park Eun-ha entered. You saw it. He nodded. They're unusual. How? Most trainee teams compete with one another. He looked back at the screen. They make one another stronger. Producer Park Eun-ha smiled. What are you thinking? Director Kim remained silent for a long moment. Then he answered. I wasn't planning to form a debut team this early. She raised an eyebrow. But now, he closed the laptop. I'm beginning to think we may have already found one. That evening, training resumed as usual. Nothing had changed. The schedules were still exhausting. The evaluations were still frightening. The road to debut remained uncertain. But something inside Hyunwoo had changed. As the members lined up for dance practice, he looked at the 6 young men beside him. Then smiled. A genuine smile. The first in many days. I've spent 8 years trying to become an idol. He spoke quietly. But, I think these past few weeks. I've finally learned how to become a leader. The members smiled back. They still had a long road ahead. They would face more failures. More tears. More impossible challenges. But from this day onward, their leader no longer carried the weight of 7 dreams by himself. He carried one. Together. Chapter 16, The Perfect Dancer. The countdown on the practice room wall read. 21 days until the special mid-year evaluation. For every trainee inside Nova Entertainment, each passing day felt like another grain of sand slipping through an hourglass. There was no slowing down. Only practice. Again. And again. The dance studio echoed with heavy breathing. Instructor Kim Sang-ho stood with his arms crossed. From the top, music exploded through the speakers. The trainees moved as one. Sharp turns. Fast footwork. Explosive jumps. Every mistake earned another repetition. Every hesitation meant starting over. Lead Taeyang stood in the center. His movements were flawless. Every spin landed perfectly. Every beat matched the music. Even Instructor Kim nodded slightly. Excellent. The compliment lasted only one word. But from Instructor Kim, it meant everything. The other trainees watched with admiration. He's unbelievable. He never makes mistakes. I heard he practices until 2 in the morning. No wonder he's the best dancer. Taeyang ignored every compliment. As soon as practice ended, he bowed to the instructor. May I stay and practice longer? Instructor Kim looked at him. For 1 hour. Yes, sir. Back at the dorm, the 6 members gathered around the dining table. Jaeho looked around. Where's Taeyang Hung? Jisoo checked the clock. Still practicing. Akira frowned. He skipped dinner yesterday too. Hyunwoo sighed. Again. Minjae quietly looked toward the empty chair. Something didn't feel right. That night, unable to sleep, Minjae walked to the kitchen for a glass of water. As he passed the practice room, he noticed light spilling beneath the door. He peeked inside. Taeyang, alone. The music was playing softly. Step, turn, jump. Again, again, again. His breathing was uneven. Sweat soaked his shirt, yet he refused to stop. Minjae quietly watched from the doorway. Then, it happened. Taeyang landed awkwardly after a jump. He grabbed his ankle. His face twisted in pain. But instead of resting, he stood up again, and continued dancing. Minjae immediately stepped inside. Hung. Taeyang stopped. You should be asleep. So should you. Silence. Minjae looked at the swollen ankle. Does it hurt? I'm fine. You don't look fine. It's nothing. Minjae hesitated before asking. Why are you pushing yourself this hard? Taeyang looked away. Because I have to. The next morning, the members gathered for breakfast. Taeyang walked normally. Or at least, he tried to. Minjae noticed the slight limp immediately. So did Hyunwoo. You hurt your ankle. Taeyang shook his head. No. Jaeho tilted his head. Then why are you walking like that? I'm just tired. Nobody believed him. Later that day, dance class began. Instructor Kim demonstrated a difficult combination. Groups of 4. Begin. Taeyang moved first. Perfect. 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 Then, a tiny hesitation. Less than half a second. Nobody else noticed. Except Minjae. Taeyang frowned. He had noticed too. Again. He repeated the movement. Again. 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 Each attempt became more forceful. His ankle absorbed every landing. The pain grew worse. Still, he refused to stop. During lunch, Minjae found Taeyang sitting alone outside the company building. A cold sports drink rested beside him. The untouched food in his lunchbox had already grown cold. Minjae quietly sat beside him. Quote dot dot dot. You're not eating. I'm not hungry. Quote dot dot dot. That's a lie. Taeyang smiled faintly. Quote dot dot dot. Yeah. For several minutes, neither of them spoke. Then Taeyang suddenly asked. Quote dot dot dot. Do you know why I started dancing? Minjae shook his head. When I was 11, I entered my first competition. I lost. He laughed quietly. I cried all night. My father told me, second place means someone worked harder than you. So, I practiced. I won the next competition. Then another. And another. His smile slowly disappeared. Eventually, I forgot how to lose. Minjae listened quietly. If I make mistakes, I feel like I'm disappointing everyone. My parents, my teachers, the company, the team. He clenched his fists. If I'm not perfect, what value do I have? Those words hit Minjae harder than he expected. For years, he had believed his own worth depended on losing weight. Now, he realized Taeyang carried a different burden. Perfection. That evening, Minjae returned to Studio B. He sat at the piano. Without thinking, he began playing. A melody slowly formed. Not sad, not triumphant, gentle, patient, as if reminding someone that it was okay to breathe. He quietly wrote a title. One step behind. As he played, the studio door opened. Producer Park Eun-ha entered. She listened without interrupting. When the song ended, she smiled. Who is this one for? Minjae looked down. Quote dot dot dot. Taeyang. She nodded. I thought so. He's chasing perfection. Minjae blinked. Quote dot dot dot. You noticed. I've worked with dancers. For 20 years. She looked through the studio window toward the dance building. The ones who look strongest often carry the heaviest pressure. That night, the 6 members gathered in the living room. Jaiho suddenly stood. I have an idea. Everyone looked at him. What if? He smiled brightly. Tomorrow, we all stay after practice. Jisoo grinned. And, we dance with Taeyang Hung. Akira laughed softly. He'll probably make us repeat everything. Definitely, Dohun replied. Hyunwoo smiled. But, he won't be alone. Everyone turned toward Minjae. He quietly nodded. Quote dot dot dot. Let's help him remember. Remember what? Jaiho asked. Minjae smiled. Quote dot dot dot. That even the best dancer doesn't have to dance by himself. Outside the dorm, the city lights shimmered beneath the night sky. Somewhere across Seoul, hundreds of trainees were chasing the same dream. But only 7 were learning that true strength wasn't about being the strongest alone. It was about becoming stronger. Together. For the first time in years. The perfect dancer had someone quietly noticing the cracks behind his perfect performance. And though Taeyang didn't realize it yet, those 6 people would soon teach him that perfection was never what made him irreplaceable. Chapter 17, One Mistake. 14 days until the special mid-year evaluation. The countdown clock seemed louder every day. Every trainee who passed it instinctively looked up. 2 weeks. That was all the time they had left. Inside Dance Studio 1, instructor Kim Sang-ho stood in front of the mirrors. His expression was as stern as ever. Today's rehearsal, he looked around the room, will be performed without stopping. If one person makes a mistake, the entire team starts over. The 7 members exchanged determined glances. Quote dot dot dot. Yes, sir. The music began. Taeyang stood at the center. His face was calm, too calm. Minjae noticed the faint white tape wrapped beneath Taeyang's practice shoes. His ankle. It still hadn't healed. The choreography was their hardest yet. Fast footwork, sharp formations, powerful jumps. The 7 moved together. Hyunwoo's stable presence guided the group. Jisoo's energy filled every transition. Dohun's expressions made every movement feel alive. Akira's graceful lines blended everything together. Jaiho's youthful enthusiasm completed the performance. And Minjae, though still not the strongest dancer, kept every beat with unwavering determination. Instructor Kim nodded. Good. Continue. The music intensified. The final chorus approached. Then, it happened. Taeyang jumped. His injured ankle twisted the moment he landed. His balance disappeared. He stumbled. One step. Then another. He fell to one knee. The music stopped. Silence. Nobody moved. Taeyang slowly lowered his head. Quote dot dot dot. I'm sorry. His voice barely rose above a whisper. I made a mistake. Instructor Kim looked at the group. Again, the members returned to their starting positions. No one complained. No one sighed. The music started again. This time, Taeyang pushed himself even harder. He landed every jump, ignored every stab of pain, forced his body forward. The final formation approached. Jump, spin, landing. His ankle gave out again. He collapsed completely. The room fell silent. Taeyang clenched his fists. Enough. He slowly stood. I'll sit this one out. No. Hyunwoo answered immediately. Taeyang looked surprised. I'll only hold everyone back. No. This time, it was Minjae. The 6 members walked toward him. Jisoo scratched the back of his head. Do you remember my first dance class? Taeyang blinked. I forgot half the choreography. Jaiho laughed. I forgot almost all of it. Akira smiled. My Korean was so poor I misunderstood every instruction. Dohun crossed his arms. I used to smile at the wrong camera. Even Hyunwoo laughed. I fainted after my first company marathon. Taeyang looked at them, confused. What are you trying to say? Minjae stepped closer. You've been carrying us since the day we met. He smiled softly. Isn't it our turn to carry you? For the first time, Taeyang didn't know how to respond. Instructor Kim quietly watched the scene. He didn't interrupt. He simply folded his arms. Observing, Hyunwoo looked at the instructor. Sir. Instructor Kim raised an eyebrow. We'd like to adjust the choreography. Silence. Explain. Minjae stepped forward with a notebook. He had spent the previous night making small formation sketches. If Taeyang doesn't have to jump here. He pointed at the bridge. He can transition into the center using a slide. Jisoo nodded. I can cover the extra movement. Akira pointed to another page. I can extend this turn. Jaiho smiled brightly. I'll take the jump. Everyone looked at him. Can you? Jaiho scratched his cheek. I'll practice until I can. Laughter filled the room. Even Taeyang smiled. Instructor Kim studied the notes. Then, to everyone's surprise, he nodded. Try it. The music started once more. The members moved into formation. Everything flowed naturally. When the difficult section arrived, Taeyang no longer forced the painful jump. Instead, Jaiho leapt higher. Akira extended his movement. Jisoo shifted half a step. Minjae changed position. The choreography still looked complete. No one would have noticed anything had changed. The final chorus exploded. The 7 voices, 7 movements, 7 dreams. The music ended. Silence. Instructor Kim slowly walked forward. He looked at Taeyang. Did you notice? Taeyang nodded. They covered my mistake. Instructor Kim shook his head. No. He looked at all 7 members. They trusted one another. The words echoed inside the practice room. After training, the company doctor finally examined Taeyang's ankle. The diagnosis was clear. A mild ligament strain. You need 3 days without impact. Taeyang immediately protested. I can't. You can. The doctor looked directly at him. Unless you want 3 months instead. That evening, the members transformed the dorm living room into a temporary practice area. They spread blankets across the floor. Minjae played the piano. Hyunwoo practiced harmonies. Jisoo worked on rap timing. Akira and Dohun refined hand movements while seated. Jaiho carefully rehearsed the new jump. Taeyang watched from the sofa. I'm sorry, he whispered. Minjae smiled. For what? Making everyone change. Hyunwoo laughed. You still don't understand. Jisoo grinned. When one member improves, the team improves. When one member struggles, the team struggles. Jaiho pointed dramatically. That's what families do. Late that night, everyone finally went to bed. Except Taeyang. He quietly walked onto the dorm balcony. The cool breeze brushed against his face. Moments later, Minjae joined him. Neither spoke. After several minutes, Taeyang finally broke the silence. When I was younger, my father used to tell me, never make mistakes. He looked at the city lights. So I believed. Mistakes meant failure. Minjae looked up at the stars. And now, Taeyang smiled. Now I think, mistakes show you who stays beside you. He turned toward Minjae. Thank you. Minjae shook his head. No, we're teammates. Taeyang laughed softly. No, we're more than that. The following morning, Instructor Kim reviewed yesterday's rehearsal footage. He replayed the moment Taeyang fell. Not once, not twice, 5 times. Assistant Coach Lee looked confused. Why keep watching? The mistake. Instructor Kim quietly smiled. I'm not watching the mistake. He pointed toward the screen. I'm watching. What happened after it? On the monitor, 6 trainees instinctively stepped toward one. No hesitation. No blame. Only trust. Instructor Kim closed the video. They're finally learning. What? Assistant Coach Lee asked. He answered simply. The best choreography isn't made by perfect dancers. It's made by people who refuse to let each other fall. As the 7 returned to training that afternoon, Taeyang's ankle was still healing. His movements weren't perfect. For the first time in his life, he didn't need them to be. Because he had finally learned something greater than perfection. He had learned trust. And somewhere deep inside, the future called Eclipse shone a little brighter. Chapter 18, The Smile Behind the Rap. 10 days until the special mid-year evaluation. The atmosphere inside Nova Entertainment had grown even more intense. Practice rooms were filled before sunrise. Lights remained on long after midnight. Every trainee knew that one evaluation could change everything. Yet, no matter how exhausting the day became, there was always one person making everyone laugh. Seo Jisoo. Jaiho. Jisoo pointed dramatically across the dance studio. Your left foot. Jaiho looked down in confusion. My left foot. It's attached backwards. Jaiho gasped. Really? He immediately bent down to check. The entire room burst into laughter. Jaiho looked up a few seconds later. Hung, you tricked me. Jisoo grinned. It worked. Even Instructor Kim hid a smile before clapping his hands. Enough. Back to practice. Every day was the same. Whenever someone looked discouraged, Jisoo found a way to brighten the room. When Akira struggled with Korean pronunciation, Jisoo practiced with him after training. When Taeyang became frustrated, Jisoo deliberately danced badly just to make him laugh. When Hyunwoo became too serious, Jisoo challenged him to rock paper scissors during breaks. Even Minjae, who rarely laughed loudly, found himself smiling more because of Jisoo. But Minjae also noticed something strange. Every evening after dinner, Jisoo disappeared. No explanation, no goodbye. He simply left the dorm. Then returned long after everyone was asleep. Every single night. 3 nights later, Minjae quietly waited near the dorm entrance. At exactly 9:30 p.m., Jisoo grabbed his backpack. I'm heading out. Jaiho blinked. Again. Yep. Where? Jisoo smiled. Secret mission. He gave everyone a playful salute before leaving. 5 minutes later, Minjae quietly followed him. I'm sorry. He whispered to himself. I just want to make sure you're okay. Jisoo walked several blocks away from the dorm. Past convenience stores. Past cafes. Past busy streets. Finally, he stopped in front of a small fried chicken restaurant. Instead of going inside as a customer, he tied on an apron. Minjae froze. He's working. For the next 4 hours. Jisoo carried trays, cleaned tables, washed dishes, delivered food. He smiled at every customer. Just like he smiled at the dorm. Even though, by midnight, his hands were trembling from exhaustion. When the restaurant finally closed, the owner handed Jisoo an envelope. You worked hard. Jisoo bowed politely. Thank you. He carefully placed the envelope inside his backpack. Instead of buying himself food, he stopped at an ATM. Minjae quietly watched from across the street. Jisoo deposited nearly all of the money. Only a few bills remained in his wallet. The next morning, breakfast in the dorm felt normal. Jaiho complained about sore muscles. Taeyang reminded him to stretch. Akira prepared soup. Nobody noticed Jisoo quietly, yawning into his bowl. Nobody, except Minjae. After practice, Minjae gently approached him. Can we talk? Jisoo smiled. Sure. They sat together on a bench outside the company. After a long silence, Minjae quietly asked. Why didn't you tell us? Jisoo's smile faded. You saw. Minjae nodded. I'm sorry. I followed you. Jisoo laughed softly. I guess I'm not very good at keeping secrets. He looked toward the evening sky. My father became sick 3 years ago. Minjae remained silent. My mother works 2 jobs. My younger sister is still in school. He smiled again. But this smile looked different. It looked tired. I wanted to help. So, I started working. Minjae looked down. But trainee schedules. I know. Jisoo nodded. I only work 3 nights a week now. Sometimes 4. You barely sleep. I'll sleep after we debut. He laughed. Hopefully. Minjae frowned. You're carrying too much. Jisoo looked at him. You carried 38 rejections. Hyunwoo carried 8 years. Taeyang carried perfection. He smiled warmly. This is just my weight to carry. That night, Minjae couldn't stop thinking about those words. He returned to Studio B, sat at the piano, and quietly began writing. A cheerful melody, bright, hopeful, exactly like Jisoo, but hidden beneath it, a softer harmony, one that carried quiet sadness. At the top of the page he wrote, "Your smile knows." 2 days later, the secret accidentally came out. Jaiho had forgotten his water bottle. He rushed back toward the dorm. As he passed the fried chicken restaurant, he froze. Jisoo hung. Jisoo looked equally surprised. Jaiho. Within seconds, the rest of the members arrived after searching for Jaiho. Silence filled the restaurant. Hyunwoo looked around. You've been working here. Jisoo lowered his head. Yeah, I didn't want everyone to worry. Nobody spoke for several moments. Finally, Akira quietly asked. Have you eaten dinner? Jisoo blinked. No. Jaiho immediately raised his hand. Owner, 7 bowls of fried rice, please. Jisoo panicked. Wait, you don't have to. Hyunwoo smiled. We're customers. You're working. Serve us. The restaurant owner laughed. I've never seen your coworkers before. Jisoo scratched his head. They're not coworkers. He looked at the 6 familiar faces smiling back at him. A gentle smile slowly appeared. They're my family. That evening, the 7 walked back to the dorm together beneath the city lights. Nobody teased Jisoo. Nobody pitied him. Instead, Jaiho quietly slipped a canned coffee into Jisoo's backpack. For tonight, Akira packed extra rice balls for him. Hyunwoo adjusted tomorrow's practice schedule so Jisoo could rest a little longer. Taeyang silently carried Jisoo's bag for the rest of the walk. Dohun bought him a pair of work gloves after noticing the blisters on his hands. And Minjae handed him a folded sheet of music. Jisoo opened it. At the top, the title read, Your Smile Knows. Beneath it, a single handwritten sentence. Even the brightest smile deserves someone to protect it. Jisoo stared at the page. His vision blurred. For years, he had smiled so others wouldn't worry. Tonight, for the first time, someone had looked beyond that smile. As they disappeared into the quiet streets together, 7 silhouettes walked side by side, each carrying different burdens, each chasing different dreams. Yet somehow, those burdens felt lighter when shared. Because that was what family did. They laughed together. They struggled together. And when one member quietly hid their pain behind a smile, the other 6 learned to smile beside them. Chapter 19, Family. 7 days until the special mid-year evaluation. The days passed in a blur of sweat, aching muscles, and endless rehearsals. Wake up, run, train, eat, practice, sleep, repeat. For the 7 trainees of Nova Entertainment, life had become a routine of chasing a dream that still felt impossibly far away. Yet, despite the pressure, there was one date quietly circled on Han Minjae's notebook. October 12th, Jisoo's birthday. 3 days before, Minjae quietly called everyone into the music room after lights out. The 6 members gathered around the piano. Jaiho whispered dramatically, Is this a secret meeting? Minjae nodded. Yes. Jisoo was still working his part-time shift. They had about 3 hours. Hyunwoo folded his arms. So, what's the plan? Minjae smiled softly. We're celebrating Jisoo's birthday. Jaiho immediately raised both hands. I'll buy the cake. Jisoo laughed. With what money? Everyone looked at him. Oh. The room fell silent. They were trainees. Their allowances barely covered personal necessities. A large cake was impossible. Akira quietly smiled. We can bake one. Everyone turned toward him. You know how. My grandmother taught me. Jaiho's eyes sparkled. Can you teach us? Akira laughed. I'll try. Taeyang looked thoughtful. I'll decorate the living room. Dohun nodded. I'll print our photos. Hyunwoo smiled. I'll write a letter. Jaeho grinned. I'll make balloons. Jisoo frowned. Do you know how? No. Everyone laughed. For the next 3 evenings, the members secretly prepared. Akira taught them how to bake. The first cake collapsed. The second one burned. The third looked slightly crooked. Jaeho proudly stared at it. It's beautiful. Taeyang sighed. It looks like it survived an earthquake. The room erupted with laughter. Meanwhile, Hyunwoo carefully wrote a letter. Not as a leader. As a friend. He rewrote it 4 times. Unable to find the right words, Dohun gathered photos from their first months together. Pictures after morning runs, dance practice, late night meals, Minjae asleep at the piano, Jaeho making funny faces, Akira cooking, Taeyang secretly smiling, Hyunwoo laughing, moments they almost forgot. Minjae quietly composed one final piece. A gentle acoustic melody. Simple, warm. He titled it, Home. Finally, October 12th arrived. The members woke before dawn. Instead of exercising, they decorated the dorm. Paper stars, hand-cut banners, printed photographs covered the living room walls. The crooked homemade cake sat proudly in the middle of the table. Jaeho looked around proudly. We're professionals. Taeyang looked at the banner hanging upside down. Sure. Everyone laughed. The day continued normally. No one mentioned birthdays. No one acted differently. Jisoo seemed completely unaware. Why are you all behaving? He asked suspiciously. Jaeho immediately answered. We're always like this. Nobody believed him. That evening, Jisoo returned from work. The dorm was dark. Guys. No answer. Did everyone go to sleep already? He quietly opened the living room door. The lights suddenly switched on. Surprise. Jisoo jumped so hard he nearly dropped his backpack. What? The 6 members burst into laughter. Colorful paper stars covered the ceiling. Photos surrounded the room. A handmade banner read, Happy birthday, Jisoo. The slightly crooked cake waited on the table. Its frosting wasn't perfect. The writing leaned sideways. But it was beautiful. Jaeho proudly pointed. We made it ourselves. Jisoo blinked. Really? Akira scratched his cheek. The frosting was mostly Jaeho. Sorry. It exploded. Everyone laughed again. Hyunwoo stepped forward. Sit. Jisoo obeyed quietly, still unable to believe what he was seeing. One by one, the members handed him handwritten letters. Taeyang's was short. Thank you for reminding me to smile. Akira's read, Thank you for becoming my first family in Korea. Dohun wrote, You taught me that laughter is also strength. Jaeho's letter filled 3 pages. Mostly drawings. Half the words were crossed out. At the bottom it simply read, You're the best hung. Jisoo laughed through his tears. Finally, Minjae handed him one folded sheet of music. Jisoo smiled. Another song. Minjae nodded. This one's finished. He quietly sat at the piano. The room became silent. Then, the melody began. Warm, comforting, gentle. Just like coming home after a long day. Minjae softly sang. Home isn't only where you're born. Home is where someone waits for you. Even on your darkest days. You'll never eat alone. By the second verse, Jaeho was already crying. Akira quietly wiped away tears. Even Taeyang looked down to hide his watery eyes. When the song ended, Jisoo couldn't speak. He simply stood, walked toward Minjae, and hugged him tightly. Thank you. His voice trembled. I always worried that if I left home, I'd lose my family. He looked around at the 6 familiar faces. But a tear rolled down his cheek. I found another one. Hyunwoo smiled warmly. No, you didn't find one. He looked at each member. We built one. The 7 gathered around the small cake. It wasn't expensive. It wasn't perfect. But to them, it was priceless. Together they blew out the candles. 1 wish. 7 hearts. The next morning, producer Park Eun-ha entered the dorm for a routine inspection. She stopped in the living room. The decorations were still hanging. The handmade banner remained on the wall. The empty cake box sat on the table. She quietly smiled. Assistant Kim tilted his head. They forgot to clean up. Park Eun-ha shook her head. No, She gently picked up one of the handwritten letters. They left themselves a memory. Before leaving, she noticed something else. Pinned beside the practice schedule was a group photo from the birthday. Across the bottom, written in Minjae's neat handwriting, were 4 simple words: "We'll debut together." Producer Park Eun-ha looked at the photo for a long moment, then whispered to herself, "I hope you do." That afternoon, the members returned to practice. Their muscles still ached. The evaluations were still waiting. The pressure hadn't disappeared, but every time one of them grew tired, their eyes drifted toward one another. A smile, a nod, a quiet word of encouragement. It was enough, because family wasn't about sharing the same blood. It was about sharing the same dream. And these 7 young men were slowly becoming inseparable. The stage still waited for them. But no matter how difficult the road became, they would never walk it alone. Chapter 20, One Team. 3 days until the special mid-year evaluation. Rain fell steadily over Seoul. Inside Nova Entertainment, the practice rooms were brighter than ever. Not because of the lights. Because every trainee was giving everything they had. The special mid-year evaluation was only days away. For many, it would decide whether they stayed or disappeared. Dance Studio 1. Instructor Kim Sang-ho clapped once. Today's rehearsal will be observed. A murmur spread through the room. Observed? By whom? The instructor didn't answer. He simply pointed toward the stage. Positions. The 7 members quietly took their places. Hyunwoo stood at the center. Taeyang flexed his recovering ankle. Akira adjusted his in-ear practice monitor. Dohun took a deep breath. Jisoo rolled his shoulders. Jaiho smiled nervously. Minjae rested his hands on the keyboard that would begin the performance. No one spoke. They didn't need to. One glance was enough. Behind the one-way observation glass, Director Kim entered first. Producer Park Eun-ha stood beside him. Soon, the company's CEO arrived. Department heads followed. Dance instructors, vocal coaches, performance directors. The room filled with quiet anticipation. Assistant Kim whispered, "They're only trainees." Producer Park Eun-ha smiled. Watch carefully. The lights dimmed. Silence. A single piano note echoed through the studio. Minjae closed his eyes. The melody flowed gently. Not flashy. Not complicated. Just honest. Exactly like him. Hyunwoo's voice opened the first verse. Steady. Warm. Confident. 8 years of experience could be heard in every note. Jisoo stepped forward. His rap carried emotion instead of showmanship. The playful trainee everyone knew had become a performer who could tell a story. Akira and Dohun's harmonies blended beautifully. Jaiho's youthful energy filled every movement. Taeyang's dancing remained elegant, even while protecting his recovering ankle. No unnecessary force, no reckless jumps, only controlled precision. He finally understood. Perfection wasn't about never making mistakes. It was about dancing with trust. Then came the bridge. Minjae slowly stood from the keyboard. The members instinctively shifted formation. Without speaking, without hesitation, exactly as they had practiced. He sang quietly, "Even if tomorrow hides the sun, we'll become each other's light." The room became completely silent. Behind the observation glass, no one wrote notes anymore. They simply watched. The final chorus exploded. 7 voices, 7 dreams, 7 hearts beating together. The last note faded. The final pose held. Silence. Several long seconds passed. Then, Director Kim quietly spoke. Again, the members looked at one another. They bowed. "Yes, sir." The music started again. Not one complaint. Not one sigh. The second performance was even stronger. Then, Director Kim spoke once more. Again, by the 4th performance, everyone was drenched in sweat. Jaiho struggled to breathe. Minjae's legs trembled. Taeyang's ankle ached. Hyunwoo's voice grew hoarse. Still, no one gave up. The 5th performance ended. Silence filled the room. Director Kim finally stood. He looked around at the executives. "What did you see?" The dance director answered first. "Good synchronization." The vocal coach nodded. "Stable vocals." The performance director added. "Strong teamwork." Director Kim folded his arms. "No." The room became quiet. "You described skills." He looked back toward the 7 trainees. "I asked what you saw." Producer Park Eun-ha smiled. "I saw 7 people. who never looked at themselves. Everyone turned toward her. She continued. They watched each other. When Jaiho was half a beat late, Hyunwoo adjusted. When Taeyang protected his ankle, Akira covered the movement. When Minjae became nervous, Jisoo smiled first. She looked toward Director Kim. They aren't performing as 7 individuals anymore. They're breathing together. The CEO quietly nodded. I noticed the same thing. Director Kim remained silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. I've changed my mind. The room turned toward him. I was planning to build several different debut teams. He looked through the observation window once more. But, separating those 7, would be our biggest mistake. Producer Park Eun-ha smiled. So, he nodded. I want a proposal. A debut project. All 7. Assistant Kim blinked. So soon? Director Kim answered calmly. Not immediately. They still have much to learn. But, he smiled ever so slightly. Their future should be together. Outside, the 7 trainees sat on the practice room floor. Completely exhausted, Jaiho lay flat on his back. I think I left my soul somewhere during the 4th performance. Jisoo laughed. We'll pick it up tomorrow. Even Taeyang chuckled. Hyunwoo looked around at the group. You all did well. Jaiho grinned. Leader compliment. We've been blessed. Everyone laughed. Minjae quietly opened his notebook. He had carried it since before becoming a trainee. The pages held old audition dates. Weights. Failed evaluations. Song lyrics. Dreams. He slowly turned to the last page. Then wrote. Today, we became one team. He paused. Then added another sentence. Our debut still feels far away. A smile appeared on his face. But for the first time, it feels possible. As the members left the company that evening, the rain had finally stopped. Sunlight broke through the clouds. 7 shadows stretched across the sidewalk. Walking side by side, none of them noticed the executives watching from the top floor. Producer Park Eun-ha quietly folded her arms. They don't know. Director Kim nodded. They don't. The company has already started planning. The CEO looked toward the 7 disappearing figures. What will we call them? Silence. No one answered. Not yet. Some names needed time before they could be spoken. Far below, Minjae looked up at the clearing sky. His dreams still weighed heavily on his shoulders. The road ahead would still be painful. There would be more failures. More sacrifices. More tears. But now, that dream belonged to 7 people. And together, they were slowly becoming the light that would one day eclipse the darkness. The name had not yet been announced. But destiny had already chosen it. Eclipse. End of Volume 2, 7 Different Dreams. 7 strangers had entered Nova Entertainment hoping to chase their own dreams. By the end of this volume, they were no longer 7 individuals competing against one another. They had become a family. A team. A promise. And although the world had yet to learn their names, the people inside Nova Entertainment had already begun preparing for the day those 7 young men would stand together beneath the spotlight. The journey to debut had only just begun. Coming in Volume 3, Before Sunrise, the company officially forms the 7 trainees into a pre-debut project team. New challenges await: recording their first original songs, filming performance videos, surviving public trainee showcases, and facing rival trainee teams. As excitement grows, Han Minjae discovers that becoming the producer of a future idol group means carrying not only his own dream, but the dreams of 6 brothers who now trust him with theirs. Thank you for listening to II Fiction Stories. Please like, comment, share and subscribe. See you next time.